Hey guys, it's wonderful to see your smiling faces again. Today is day 5 of One Zentangle A Day. And today we've got two patterns, Isochor and Printemps. Before we dive into those, I want to talk about this idea of a sparkle. If you notice here in this Printemps pattern, there's an area here where there are some gaps in the line. And that's what a sparkle is. A sparkle is one of our tangle enhancers. And a sparkle is just where you leave a gap in a line on purpose to make that part of the line look like it's a little brighter or shiny. And so, like, if we look here, we can see there's gaps in these lines here. Or if we look at this isochor pattern, we can see there's little gaps in lines. And so this could be done with any pattern, not just these ones. It could be done with any pattern to make a little bit of variety and make things look a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to keep that in mind here as I start drawing these two patterns. And the pattern for isochor is pretty simple. It's just you take an area that is, looped off by a string, and you just make a bunch of curved stripes across it. Now, it does work best if you have several different sections going on, and that's why they've done this wild string here with lots of little sections, because the idea with isochor is you're kind of making that one section look three-dimensional and curved with those curved lines. But if you get lots of them together, it kind of looks like little wormy shapes overlapping each other. Maybe I will go ahead and add another string through there, so it'll be 4 different sections. But really, it's just a curved line, and 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 a curved line. That's all there is to it. Now here, I did not make any sparkles. I just did those curved lines all the way across. So maybe in this one beside it, I'm going to actually do some sparkles. And I think for this one, maybe I'll curve the lines the other way. It's easier for me to move my hand in this sort of curve rather than in the other direction. So I've flipped my paper. And so there's a line. And I think I'm going to leave a gap there. That's called a sparkle. And so you can kind of see how that just adds a little bit of variety and makes this one look a little different from that one. I'm going to go ahead and do that again over here. That's the isochor pattern in a nutshell. Now, if you notice here, there is a little bit of shading that helps to make it look more 3D. So let's get out that pencil. And the way to shade it is just kind of shade around the edges, but leave the center of it lighter. That'll make the center of it look like it's raised up, like it emphasizes that curve a little bit more. And make the darkest part of the shading right at the edges, especially in a place like this where there's two kind of next to each other or overlapping each other. And that's really all there is to it. Dark shading between the two, and lighter shading around the edges, and then leave the center of that section blank. And there it kind of looks like little wormies. Now this Printemps pattern is just spirals. That's all it is. Spirals that overlap on top of other spirals. And I like to start with a couple of big ones and then work my way back from there. Now, with the sparkles, those little gaps in the line, it's a good idea to keep those consistent throughout all of them. You don't necessarily have to, but consistency is always a good idea with a Zentangle. So what I like to do to make these spirals, notice how they close off at the outside. So I'm going to start by making a circle. And when I get to the circle, I'm going to close it, but keep going, spiraling in. And maybe right there inside from that closed off edge, that's where I'm going to do my sparkles. It's different from those ones. You can do it wherever, but I'm going to try to keep it consistent across all of my spirals. So again, I'm going to make a circle, close it and keep going with a spiral. When I get back around to that edge, I'll make my sparkle. And again. And then once you've got a couple of really big ones, you start making other spirals that overlap underneath or behind. So maybe there's one in this area here. Now, when I get to the string here, I could make the whole circle here, or I could have it overlap like it's going behind something. Maybe I'll do a different pattern on the other side of that string. And when you're getting ready to shade this one, you can shade in lots of different ways. One of the things it looks like they've done here is just shaded away from the sparkle. So like the sparkle would be where the light is shining and brightening up that side. And so they've shaded the other side. That's one way to do it. Or you could shade around the overlapping like we did on Hollabaugh. Where was that? Right here. Or, you shade how you want to shade. But I'm going to go along with this idea of shading the opposite side from the sparkle. So on this spiral, the sparkle is over here. I'm going to shade this side. And so that means the right side of every spiral is going to get some shading treatment. Now, as always, it's time to actually make a Zentangle tile using these patterns and using this idea of sparkles. So I'll start with my border just like always. And a string. If I'm going to do some of these isochors, I might want smaller shapes. Lots of smaller shapes would be good for that. So I'm going to let my string sort of wrap around a couple of times. Be free with it. Be fun with it. No wrong way to do it. Before I actually turn this into a Zentangle tile with patterns and everything, notice that this one is rectangle instead of square. That's because one thing it's talking about here is artist trading cards. This is something I personally haven't really gotten into. It's an interesting thought. The idea behind artist trading cards would be, just like you trade Pokemon cards, or just like you trade, Yu-Gi-Oh, or whatever the, kids are doing these days. But the idea is each artist makes their own artist trading cards, and you could make 100 of them and give 100 of them to your 100 different friends, and then all of your friends make their artist trading cards and give them to you, so that in the end you'd have a collection. It's like one of mine and one of Joe and one from Susie and one from Sally, and then you'd have a collection. To me, the whole purpose of a Zentangle is to find your Zen, not to make it an interactive thing with other people. But if that's your thing, then do it. That's awesome. And now it's time to start making the patterns. I'll start with some Isochor. And then it's time to make my little N with the C wraparound. There we go, my initials NCN. And this last pattern I did in the background, I just wanted something lightweight. I looked back because I can't remember. This pattern is one I have done before. It's similar to the Knight's Bridge pattern, but I didn't, colored in like a checkerboard. I wanted it to be light, a light tonal value, because I wanted these to stand out a little bit more, some contrast there. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier with Isochor is these little circles that just kind of get added. I think of those like little eggs, like these are the worms and those are their eggs, that just kind of fill in any empty gaps or in between spaces, and so I kind of used those wherever there were corners between, and then here where it kind of goes into the other pattern, and just kind of wrapping around in interesting ways. I didn't do any shading on this one. I guess I could go back in and do some of that, but I've already signed it, so I'll call it done for now. That's day 5. Again, we talked about sparkles, which is where you leave gaps. Sparkles are kind of along this edge and here, where it makes those patterns look lighter because they've got those little gaps in that spot. It almost makes a highlight. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, hit the thumbs up button down below, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and I'll see you tomorrow on day 6.